So Bernie Sanders has broken his silence on the killing of the United Health CEO. Here's what Sahil Kapoor, the NBC News senior national political reporter, here's what he says. Bernie on Luigi Mangione and the reaction. It goes without saying that the murder of this gentleman who has 2 kids is outrageous and unacceptable. He adds, but I think what the outpouring of anger at the healthcare industry tells us is that millions of people understand that healthcare is a human right, and you cannot have people in the insurance industry rejecting needed healthcare for people while they make billions of dollars in profits. So I'm introducing a new rule for everybody on this specific topic of the United Health CEO and Luigi Mangione. Here's my specific rule. If you're going to talk about this, you better have a but in the conversation. The but is necessary because the system is murdering 68,000 people a year and bankrupting many more.
Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna joins me now, and this is obviously just a horrendous crime. But has this online vitriol surprised you?
Well, first of all, let me just say it was horrific. I mean, this is a father we're talking about of 2 children, and my sympathies to the entire family. There is no justification for violence. But the outpouring afterwards has not surprised me. Look, I, as a congressperson, had United Healthcare deny a prescription for a nasal $100 pump spray, and I couldn't get them to reverse this. So imagine what ordinary people are dealing with. The biggest denial comes when it's cancer treatment. I mean, people are getting denied on cancer treatment. And my view is very simple. Why can't we have a rule that if a doctor prescribes something and if Medicare, traditional Medicare, is going to cover it, then private insurance companies should be forced to cover it?
Yes. Yeah. By the way, I have to say, this policy literally never occurred to me as a stepping stone on our way to Medicare for all. What a simple policy change. What a simple new law, which would just absolutely, that would be a game changer. If traditional Medicare covers it, private insurance has to cover it. Oh, that's so simple. Oh, that would make such a big difference for so many people. What a great idea.
And my view is very simple. Why can't we have a rule that if a doctor prescribes something and if Medicare, traditional Medicare, is going to cover it, then private insurance companies should be forced to cover it? I mean, it's absurd in this country what's going on.
Look, as I said, everybody expects you to say the thing that you're supposed to say, of course, but you better have a but in there. And the reason why the but better be in there is because we're talking about 1 murder here, 68,000 murders here, and countless bankruptcies. By the way, the United Health CEO would be alive today if the business model of United Health was not what it is. That's just a fact. Do yourself a favor and go watch the documentary Sicko.
We got an issue in America. Too many good docs are getting out of business. Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
When Michael Moore decided to make a movie on the healthcare industry, top-level executives were on the defensive. What were they hiding?
That's not on, right?
No.
Okay.
The intent is to maximize profits.
You denied more people health care, you got a bonus.
When you don't spend money on somebody, it's a savings to the company.
I want America to have the finest health care in the world.
4 healthcare lobbyists for every member of Congress.
Here's what it costs to buy these men, and this woman, this guy, and this guy. And the United States slipped to 37 in healthcare around the world, just slightly ahead of Slovenia.
I denied a man a necessary operation and thus caused his death. This secured my reputation and it ensured my continued advancement in the healthcare field.
In the world's richest country.
I worked 3 jobs.
You worked 3 jobs?
Yes.
Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic.
Laughter isn't the best medicine.
I get a bill from my insurance company telling me that the ambulance ride wasn't pre-approved. I don't know when I was supposed to pre-approve it. After I gained consciousness in the car, before I got in the ambulance.
It's the only medicine.
There was actually one place on American soil that had free universal health care.
Which way to Guantanamo Bay?
Detainees representing a threat to our national security are given access to top-notch medical facilities.
Permission to enter. I have 3 9/11 rescue workers. They just want some medical attention, the same kind that the evildoers are getting. Hello?
Michael Moore's Sicko.
Surprise! This has been in the works for a while, but I can finally announce that I have sued the government to obtain all records related to the government's investigation of former President Donald Trump for retaining classified documents and trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Critically important to act now to capture the complete record of the federal prosecutions before the records are destroyed, altered, or God knows what the new administration will do with them.
Big news out of the state of North Carolina, where Allison Riggs, the incumbent Democratic justice on the state Supreme Court, has won yet another counting of the ballots. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Mark Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started. Third time was the charm, and it affirmed that Allison Riggs is the winner of the North Carolina State Supreme Court race. After initial count, 1 machine recount, and a partial hand recount time and time again, the North Carolina State Board of Elections says that Allison Riggs has more votes than her Republican opponent, Judge Jefferson Griffin.
Yeah, and that means there will not be a fourth counting of the ballots. I mean, the one thing about North Carolina, you got to say for them, they've got no shortage of opportunities to count, recount, and recount ballots in the case of a close election. And this was a close election, but in order to require the state to do an entire hand recount, what they call a hand-to-eye recount in North Carolina, there has to be enough of a change or a discrepancy in the partial recount to justify that. And since Allison Riggs won on what we'll call the first count, right, the election count, won the machine recount, and then this partial recount didn't change things, that's going to be the end of the road for Judge Griffin, who is the Republican opponent.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have some stunning news out of North Carolina where the Republican-led legislature is enacting a power grab right now against all of these newly elected Democratic statewide officials.
People don't necessarily understand just how terrible the Republicans in North Carolina are. When you look at the state legislative level, it is one of the worst partisan gerrymanders in the country. And Republicans have used that to not only wield power, but to wield it in a way that is extremely anti-democracy. They took a bill that was intended to deal with the hurricane relief. You know, there was quite a bit of damage, as you know, from Hurricane Helene, and they took that and they dressed it up with one anti-democratic provision after another. It strips the governor of key powers. It takes the state elections board, which is a bipartisan board, and it essentially transfers the power from that board in many key respects to the state auditor. The state auditor is the only Republican, though, available to them on a statewide basis. So they didn't want to move it to the Secretary of State because the Secretary of State is a Democrat. They prohibit the Attorney General from bringing or joining lawsuits that are contrary to any position of the legislature. And then they passed to boot a bunch of anti-voting provisions that make it essentially easier to reject mail-in ballots. One of the first things the legislature did after it gerrymandered itself was change the way in which judges and justices in North Carolina run for election. It made their elections partisan rather than nonpartisan. That led them to flip the state Supreme Court. So the state Supreme Court is now 5-2 Republican, and that is a very partisan 5-2. This becomes a circular thing where the legislature, having achieved this with the state Supreme Court, now passes these laws that'll get blessed by the state Supreme Court. Allison Riggs, one of the two Democrats on the state Supreme Court, she has now won the count, a recount, another recount, but the person who lost to her, the Republican judge who lost to her, is trying to throw out 60,000 votes. And those challenges have now been rejected by the state elections board, the exact board that is actually the target of one of the key provisions of this bill. So you can see how this is all like intertwined as part of just one big effort to undermine democracy in the state of North Carolina.
So I still believe that RFK Jr. is the most disturbing pig in Trump's cabinet of chaos. RFK Jr. is the one that I'm the most concerned about because the one thing that we all have in common, or I thought we had in common at least, is we all want to be in good health. I didn't think health was Democrat versus Republican. I didn't think health was conservative versus liberal. I thought that's something that we should all want to work together to be a healthier world. And now you've got RFK Jr., whose lawyer has now called for the government to revoke approval of the polio vaccine. Is this actually the reality now that we're going to be living in? And how in the hell can people think this was ever a good idea? But guess who's standing up now? Guess who decided to finally stick his turtleneck up and say, hey, this is getting dangerous? Oh, Mitch McConnell. Yeah, Glitch McConnell has now came out and said, boy, we're in dangerous times. And he said this because Mitch is a polio survivor himself. He had this to say, efforts to undermine public confidence in proven cures are not just uninformed, but dangerous. He went on to say anyone seeking the Senate's consent to serve in the incoming administration would do well to steer clear of even the appearance of association with such efforts. Well, Mitch, if you want to talk about the steering clear of the appearance of association, you should have steered clear of Donald Trump when you had the chance. Because if you'd have steered clear of him when you had the chance, we wouldn't be sitting here in this mess today.
The electric cars of China are better and cheaper than anybody else's. They won the competition. That happens all the time. Other companies in other countries at other times won equivalent competitions. The response of the United States has been to impose a tariff to make the better, cheaper electric car from China unaffordable. The current rate of tariff applied by the government is 100%. So, for example, if the electric car from China costs you $30,000 that have to be sent to China to pay for the car, you've got to give them to the car dealer $30,000 to pay off the Chinese, and another $30,000, 100%, goes to Uncle Sam, so that the cost to an American would be $60,000 for that $30,000 car. Okay?
Tariff money. President Trump struck another blow to free trade yesterday, announcing that the U.S. would impose escalating tariffs on imports from Mexico unless it substantially stops the flow of Central American migrants. Because the American and Mexican economies are so tightly connected, tariffs will have an immediate impact on U.S. businesses and consumers who can expect to pay more for avocados, air conditioners, and refrigerators. The hardest hit industry will be the auto business. Automakers' supply chains stretch across the border, and the U.S. imports $93 billion in vehicles and car parts from Mexico every year. So the tariffs will translate into lower profits for automakers and higher prices for car buyers. That won't stop Trump. He's already shown that he'll stick with his tough trade policies, even when they wreak havoc on a key American industry. The U.S. and China are still locked in a trade war, and China just put all orders for American soybeans on hold.
I can't certainly disagree with the fact that the Chinese laws were certainly not protecting the people who were doing business over there. They were stealing technology, and something needed to be done about that. But basically, the farmer is the guy who got put on the sacrificial block here.
The Trump administration spent $12 billion last year compensating farmers for those destroyed markets. A normal 80-acre soybean field is worth about $5,000 in compensation. Corn wasn't hit as hard and got less money, about $200 a field. The payments were supposed to be a one-off thing, but the trade war didn't end.
Soybeans have continued to deteriorate, and a week or so ago they were down in the low $7 range. So that's $140. My seed and my herbicide cost is that much. So I would really have to question my sanity whether to plant at all at that point in time. They're now talking about coming up with a program to make a payment for this year. So that changes that dynamic.
I just want to show that when Trump enacted tariffs during his first term, not only did he start an all-out trade war with China in 2018, because tariffs are inherently escalatory. When you place a tariff on another country, they're going to respond, and then you're going to respond, and then it continues to escalate. So he started a trade war, and then the proceeds from that trade war, and keep in mind, these proceeds came from American manufacturers, American consumers that bared the brunt of this cost. Those proceeds went back towards angry farmers who Trump had to bail out. The word for this is counterproductive. It's all counterproductive and inefficient. It's almost laughably counterproductive. Let me just show you this. 92% of Trump's China tariff proceeds has gone to bail out angry farmers. And if you look at this chart, where is Trump's China tariff revenue gone? The total tariff revenue from 2018 to 2020 over here on the left. And again, this revenue is not coming from China. It's not coming from Chinese companies. It's coming from American companies importing these products. The vast majority, 92% of this revenue went back towards farmers who needed to be bailed out. It's so laughably counterproductive. And let me show you this video of explaining exactly why tariffs are inflationary.
So when it comes to Trump, do you dislike his policies or him as a person or both?
I don't dislike Trump as a person in the sense that I've never met the guy. So I think he has a lot of personality traits that make him completely unsuited to being president. And also, I think his policy prescriptions, to the extent that they exist and he understands them, which is a different part of it. A lot of the stuff Trump talks about, he still doesn't know how tariffs work. We're 8 years into this thing, 9 years in. He still thinks China pays the tariffs when they're paid by American
I've seen him talk about tariffs.
Very confused guy.
Wait, so China's not paying tariffs right now?
The tariffs are paid by the American companies that import the Chinese goods. That's the way it's such a fundamental, and I see you looking a little confused on this one. This is the way tariffs work. What Trump did is place tariffs on Chinese imports. By the time the imports get here, China's been paid for the stuff. Maybe they get net 120 terms, right? But in a sense, China has already transacted. The American company who brings the goods in pays the tariffs.
Really?
You're kidding right now.
No, I thought he said he was raising the tariffs by 50 to 100% for Chinese imports.
You got to clip this. I'm begging you. You got to clip this and send it to me.
I'm genuinely
None
confused.
of this stuff is getting cut out, right?
No.
Oh my God.
We post everything.
Please. The tariffs are paid by the company that does the importing. So if you want to build a building in the U.S. and you import Chinese steel, you pay China for the steel, you pay the U.S. government the tariff. This is why it's inflationary. Economists have looked at Trump's tariff proposal and said it would make stuff more expensive for Americans. By adding the cost of the tariffs to the total cost of production.
Now, everything he's saying is very, very true, and I just want to take it one step further. All of Trump's policies, especially when it comes to economics, are inherently contradictory. So he wants to say that let's reshore manufacturing. Let's bring manufacturing back to America. And it's like, sure, of course, everybody wants America to be strong on the world stage when it comes to manufacturing. No liberals are against manufacturing in the U.S. We're just rightfully pointing out that, number one, it's not as simple as you think. Number two, it takes time. But also, if you're going to reshore manufacturing, we need labor. And you want to deport all of the labor. You want to deport the labor en masse in a violent way, Donald Trump. So how are you going to reshore manufacturing when we don't have the labor to fill these new plants or whatever it may be? I do want to finish this off by showing you this video from friend of the show, Walter Masterson. This is a brilliant piece of work because this Trump supporter at the beginning thinks that tariffs are paid for by China, and by the end of this 60-second clip, look at this dude's stance. He's like, He's standing there like Socrates, like, I did just learn that maybe tariffs are inflationary. Let's check this out.
I'm voting for the man that's going to take America back, baby. Donald J. Trump, man.
What's one of your biggest issues?
Probably going to be inflation, because I sell T-shirts and all that stuff.
Your T-shirts are made in the USA?
No, my blanks, no. See, that's the thing Trump's talking about. If we tax them, hit tariffs, the same item they're making over there will cost the same to make over here.
We pay the tariffs.
Well, the companies pay the tariffs, not us.
China doesn't pay the tariffs. We do when they come in.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Like if I'm buying 1,000 shirts from China and there's a tariff on it, I'm paying the tariff.
Well, no, whoever's getting it imported in is going to pay the tariffs.
Yeah. I'm the business owner. I'm paying the tariff. China doesn't pay it. I pay for it.
Well,
like if I'm the business owner and I buy 1,000 shirts.
I see what you're saying.
China's not. Jolly. So I'm trying to explain.
Who pays the tariff? They're paying the tariff.
Do you think that? You believe that?
I was trying to say, because I sell merch as well.
I sell you something for $10, right? You're going to sell it to him for $20.
Exactly.
But then I make you pay me $15 for it. Are you still going to sell it to him for $20?
Am I going to sell it to him for $20?
If I raise the price $5?
Oh, it's going to have to go up.
Right.
So the consumer foots the bill.
So he realizes within the course of that 1 minute clip that yes, the consumer does foot the bill, and that perfectly loops back around to what this dude was saying brilliantly. That perfectly loops back around to 92% of the proceeds from Trump's trade war during his first term going to bail out angry farmers who had to foot the bill. And then finally, just to loop it back to the first article, this is a developing story that I'll be covering over the next few days. Canadian premiers urge strong response to Trump tariff threat. This could start an all-out trade war with our next door neighbor.
My father came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, which sparked my interest in the need for immigration reform because I know what it's like to be the son of an immigrant. We grew up in a 3.5-room rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York. My mother's dream, and she died very young, but my mother's dream for her whole life was to be able to get out of that rent-controlled apartment and own a home of her own. She never lived to see that.
Then let us give hope to people in America today who have lost hope. Let us provide jobs for the jobless, housing for the homeless, food for the hungry.
You have a handful of people who control our economy, and they determine the destiny of our entire country.
I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. And so today, I am announcing the suspension of my campaign.
I also want to thank the town of Vanport. This is and we're making a dent in it, and we appreciate you for allowing us to be part of it. And
it's not just them. The whole world wants you dead. You'll have to join up with Piker. Build that movement of yours one more time. First, we'll need to save him. He's in Los Angeles. You're a legend in the eyes of those who live in the working class. That's why you'll have to handle this mission yourself. That's how Haas would want it. Now go. Let the legend come back to life. Haas, it's me.
Bernie?
What the fuck took you this long, dude?
You got 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of the American society. That is insane, and that has got to end.